That's a look at some of the Big 12 players participating in Sunday's Super Bowl. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. Last night, West Virginia gets a nice win over Cincinnati. Look, road wins are road wins, period. And, we said it earlier, but West Virginia certainly didn't punch its ticket to the NCAA tournament last night, but they didn't lose it. When you get to Selection Sunday and you've got a loss potentially like at Cincinnati with wherever Cincinnati ends up, that would not bode well. Feels like West Virginia hasn't won their way in yet, but they haven't lost their way out of the field. Mm-hmm. And this was a really impressive win because they were down.
Yeah.
I mean, Cincinnati was up 12-0 to start this game, built a 13-point lead. Cincinnati was plus 10 at half, and then West Virginia went plus 15 in the second half. So the game flipped in the second half in one stretch when West Virginia ripped off a 14-0 run, fueled by who else? Honor Huff, who scored 11 straight during the surge. And then DJ Thomas hit two massive threes, one with 1:30 left to push West Virginia in front 53-49 and force Cincinnati into kind of late clock offense down multiple possessions.
Yeah, West Virginia is one of those teams that the way they play and because of how they defend, they're very well coached. They're never out of a game. They shot 0 for 9 from beyond the arc in the first half, but they stuck with it. And Hunter Huff, who did not score in the first half, had all 16 of his points after the break. He hit a dagger three late in the game. West Virginia went on a 14-2 run early in the second half that what was a double-digit deficit turned into a 42-40 lead. And then you mentioned DJ Thomas. He hit a couple of threes with about 90 seconds to go that was huge for the Mountaineers. And I think you said it spot on. This was maybe an elimination game for West Virginia had they lost. This is a game that if you're going to be a tournament team, you have to win. And any win on the road in the Big 12 is huge for your tournament resume. So this was big for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, here's what West Virginia coach Ross Hodge said on the play of the game that really propelled them.
The play of the game, in my opinion, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was a chaotic stretch. Maybe we were tied or maybe down one or up one. It was like super chaotic. I think maybe we turned it over, they turned it over. They missed an open transition three, and Trace and Eaglestaff had a deep corner three that really hit like the front of the rim and bounced almost to half court, and it looked like it was kind of a jailbreak play where they had like a 4-on-1, and Trayson sprinted back and Amir sprinted back and got a deflection, and then that turned into a layup on the other end for him, and thought that was just a monster play. So feel extremely fortunate to get a road win, and anytime you can win on the road in the Big 12, again, you take it how it comes. So we'll take this one and get ready for the next one.
So nice win for West Virginia. On the other side, with Cincinnati, I mean, it's not been a good year for Cincinnati basketball and a highly anticipated year for Wes Miller. And, Wes has had a lot of back and forth with some of the Cincinnati fans, and that included last night as well. Here, take a listen to this exchange they had with some Cincinnati fans following this loss.
You guys deserve to be frustrated. It ain't okay. I understand the responsibility of this job. These results ain't okay.
Thank you.
You guys deserve to be frustrated. But I'm a human too, and nobody's more frustrated than I am. So trust me, I care deeply about Cincinnati.
I'd say that's completely fair, right? I mean, you got a lot of fans that have probably said a lot of ugly things to Wes Miller, and he said you deserve to be upset, you deserve to be frustrated. I'm frustrated. I'm a person. So hard not to sympathize with Wes Miller, but obviously this feels like the last year for Wes at Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I don't feel bad for Wes Miller because his buyout, if he's fired before April 1st, is $9.9 million. If he's fired after April 1st, it's $4.9 million.
So either way,
Wes Miller is getting a bag.
On April 2nd.
On April 2nd. He's made an average of like $2.7 million per year. I understand that his tenure is not gone how Cincinnati fans had hoped, how he had certainly hoped or anticipated, but they've been really close. And his tenure reminds me so much of way back in the day, early 2000s, Jim Woolridge at Kansas State, where they were so close to turning the corner and had so many close losses. It also reminds me a little bit of Mike Boynton at Oklahoma State, who could get Oklahoma State to the tournament every once in a while and into the NIT, and he did it with gritty defense, but they always lacked that offensive production in terms of shooting the basketball, like Wes Miller's Cincinnati teams, who can defend with the best of the bunch, but they struggle to score.
Yeah, they can't score.
And they're in every game. It goes right down to the wire. They just haven't been able to get over the hump. But Wes Miller's young enough that he's going to be fine. Like Mike Boynton is the top assistant at Michigan right now and is a name that is circulating among what could be some pretty big jobs, maybe even Cincinnati this offseason. He's going to be a coach again because he did more with less at Oklahoma State. I think the frustration with Wes Miller is that he's had some really good recruiting classes. He's had top 25 classes back-to-back years, and it still hasn't translated directly into the caliber of wins that Cincinnati fans expect.
Yeah, I mean, they just have not been good enough on offense. Full stop. That's it. They just have not been good enough on offense. All right, looking ahead to this weekend of hoops, Saturday and Sunday. Biggest games of the weekend, in my opinion, Texas Tech, West Virginia. West Virginia hosting Texas Tech here, and so an opportunity for West Virginia to really get a marquee win with a Texas Tech team that is struggling a little bit. That is a Sunday matchup. And then Houston, BYU, the obvious headliner of the weekend, Saturday night in Provo. I also think the Oklahoma State-Arizona game could be maybe sneaky a little bit because of a trap game appeal here with Arizona heading for Big Monday to Kansas. But it is at Arizona. It's in Tucson, so maybe that takes some of the shine off. I don't really expect Arizona to lose, but, I mean, just a kind of a look-ahead situation here for Arizona with the game on Monday. But what do you think? What's the biggest games of the weekend?
Well, I do think, Arizona, on paper, yes, this is a potential trap spot because Oklahoma State is feeling really good about themselves. They just picked up their first road win in Big 12 play in 2 seasons a week ago at Utah, and then they had that huge win against BYU, so they're oozing with confidence. With that said, matchup-wise, this is a nightmare for Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Because they're small, they're finesse, they want to run and gun, and Arizona can do both. They can pound you on the boards, and they can run with Oklahoma State. This could be a track meet. The team that wins this game probably goes over the century mark, but I don't know that Oklahoma State has the horses on the glass to compete with Arizona. The other game that I'm looking at, and Houston and BYU is obviously massive because it's a huge road opportunity for Houston to pick up a quad one win. BYU is reeling. They have really struggled defensively and been exposed on the defensive end. And so BYU looks to right that ship against a team that's maybe the most fundamentally sound in America. But the other game that intrigues me is Baylor at Iowa State. Baylor is one on the road win away from being an NCAA tournament team. Like their KenPom and their net ranking is still in the top 50. They've played a billion quad one games, and they've picked up some wins in there. So if they somehow stole this one at Iowa State and got to 4-7 in Big 12 play, that'd put them at 14-9 overall. They would have quad one wins on their resume. Let's see, they are currently 3-6 in quad one. So they'd have 4 quad one wins, including a road win against a top 10 team. Like there's going to be an upset somewhere, someplace in the Big 12. That game really intrigues me to see what type of effort we get from Baylor and to see if they can steal what would be a massive win.
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, Baylor,
like they played Iowa State close in Waco. I mean, these teams already played in Waco. Both teams shot a season low from the floor. It was a gross game. It was like the second game in the Big 12 slate. So they're familiar with one another, but like Baylor didn't look completely overmatched in that game.
Yeah, and look, Baylor, I think we talked about the teams that right now are in for the Big 12 and the teams that are out. You got Baylor, TCU, Oklahoma State, West Virginia. In a little bit, we'll take a look at kind of their paths, but you're right on Baylor. It's a great call. What you said 4 quad one wins?
They have 3. This would be number 4, but they've played 9 games in quad one. And they have some wins that are currently quad 2 that could easily slide over to quad 1. Like they've got a couple of quad 2 wins. They're 2-3 in quad 2. They actually don't have a bad loss on their resume. They don't have a quad 3 or a quad 4 loss like some of these other teams that are kind of on the bubble with them when it comes to the net rankings and the KenPom. Like they're doing offensively, they're a top 30 team. Defensively is where they've struggled, right? They're 93rd in defensive efficiency rating. But they have a top 20 schedule, 16th in the country. They're 295th in the luck rating, which tells you that they're playing much better than their record would indicate. And Scott Drew teams get better as the season progresses. Like, depth this year isn't the issue. It's just been that they've had off nights. They just can't put all the pieces together. But they at least have the bodies this year, where last year, remember, that was Edgecombe and
Rob Wright
and the big fella in the middle, and then they literally had no bench. They were playing 5 guys, and that was it. This year, they at least have the depth. It's just, can they connect?
Speaking of the Oklahoma State-Arizona game, here's what Tommy Lloyd said about Steve Lutz.
We've been on the court as a group and, kind of building to get better. And, we're excited to get out Saturday and play against, obviously, an Oklahoma State team that's playing well. I think they're much improved from last year. Coach Lutz is, kind of won. He's found a way everywhere he's been. And last year was kind of a rebuild there. And, this year he's continued to build. And, obviously, when I was watching that game against BYU last night, they looked pretty good to me.
Yeah, I mean, impressive stuff for Oklahoma State and Steve Lutz in year 2. I want to get your thoughts on some recent comments made as K-State plays again this weekend. Who does K-State have?
TCU.
K-State TCU, the Battle of Purple.
It's at TCU. This is a must-win for the Horned Frogs to keep their tournament resume hopes alive.
Yeah, so let's hear clip 7 here. Here's from a few days ago, James, AD Gene Taylor talking about the frustration of K-State right now.
It's hard to see, to be honest with you, because I know, how hard those coaches are working to try to figure it out and how hard those players are. And obviously they're facing some challenges with some injuries and stuff, but no, I get it. And, I can promise there's nobody more frustrated with what's going on than the folks in the basketball facility right now.
And then he continued putting confidence in the coach to get it fixed.
I just let them know that we're here and that we understand that it's not easy, and we understand the fans' frustration, and we get it. But they just need to know that if they need to vent or talk, that's what we're here for. But I'm not a basketball coach, and they're with them every day, and I trust that they'll try to find a way to get them back on the right track.
I mean, how much time can an Elite Eight run buy Jerome Tang? This is year 4. There's been regression when it comes to wins and losses year over year. It's been 4 completely different rosters. But Kansas State is in a predicament financially because they just invested a ton of money into football. They put together a top 30 recruiting class. They bring in a new flashy head coach in Colin Klein. They just overhauled the entire staff. His assistants are making good money. Jerome Tang's buyout, if he was fired before April 1st, is $18.7 million. If he's fired after April 1st, it's $15.7 million.
Meaning what?
Meaning I don't think K-State can afford to let him go.
So does Gene Taylor have confidence that Jerome Tang can get it fixed, or does it kind of not matter?
I think it kind of not matters. Now, Gene Taylor believes in his guys, and sure, he thinks that this thing can get turned around, and maybe it can. I mean, Kansas State's best players year over year have been the guys that have stuck with the program. David Gasson was arguably K-State's best player last year. He was the lone returner. K-State's most improved and maybe their best all-around player is their lone returner on this team, David Castillo, who played 8 or 9 minutes a game last year as a freshman. Now he's their second leading scorer. So can Jerome Tang retain some of this talent for next season? Maybe Kansas State can get back on track.
Yeah. All right, that's James Westling. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today, Big 12 Radio. BYU Houston. Do you see a path for BYU to get this win? Obviously, it's at home, which helps a lot. Provo's a tough place to play. It's a late-night game. Do you see a path here? Especially for a BYU team that's been struggling.
Yeah, a path would be that BYU figures it out defensively because offensively they have the pieces to compete with anybody. Offense is not the problem. A.J. DeBonsa can score at will. Rob Wright has been fantastic. Richie Saunders had a huge game against Houston last year. But can BYU handle that pressure, and can BYU get stops? It's going to be the rowdiest environment we've seen in Provo all season because they're backed into a corner. If BYU loses this game, all of a sudden they're 5-5. I'm concerned that that BYU's depth or lack thereof is becoming a factor.
Yeah.
Because they look tired to me. Now, I know they've made these late game pushes, but those games have been out of reach. They were down by 20 against Kansas. Texas Tech owned BYU the last 8 minutes of that loss for the Cougars. And then same thing with Oklahoma State. Like, that game flipped in the second half. So I'm worried about this matchup. I think it's a really tough matchup for BYU, much tougher than the Oklahoma State matchup was on paper earlier in the week.
BYU are they on a losing streak right now?
Yeah.
Three straight.
Mm-hmm.
Arizona, Kansas, and Oklahoma State. This has been a tough stretch for them. They've also lost 4 of 5. The only win they have is the Utah win. But when you think about, they gave up 84 points to Texas Tech, 86 to Arizona, 90 to Kansas, 99 to Oklahoma State. We just talked about Cincinnati, Wes Miller. They just haven't figured out offense. Baylor defensively continues to struggle. Like, you look at those 3 specific instances, and what's been issues continue to be issues. Different rosters, different personnel, same issues. BYU has struggled defensively for now multiple years under Kevin Young. Scott Drew's defenses have struggled under Baylor now multiple years. Mm-hmm. Same as what Wes Miller's Cincinnati offenses, and for this season, it's the reason that Wes Miller's going to lose his job.
Right, and stylistically, these are polar opposites with Houston and BYU. You've got a very new age, analytics-driven program in BYU, and then you have old school toughness. We don't care what the metrics say at Houston. And over the years, it has worked out when these teams go head-to-head for the Houston Cougars. They beat BYU by 20 in Kansas City last year in the Big 12 tournament. They beat BYU by 31 last season in Houston. And then in 2024, the last time they played 2 years ago in Provo, also a Houston win by 7. So Houston has had their number. And this Houston team is no different than those Houston teams. And so, I'm not convinced that BYU has the horses to hang with that Houston pressure defense, dominate the glass, and then Kingston Fleming's. It has been enough offensively for Houston to do what they do.
That's James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio. We are presented by Modelo. We'll get into Kelvin Sampson's comments about being poor and then walking them back a little bit last night. Coming up on the way next, though, let's talk with the former BYU center, Eric Mika. He joins us next with James Wesley. I'm Ari Tepkin. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, on TuneIn, and Big 12 Studios.